Never fire a dry engine again. With a simple hand drill and 10 seconds, you'll have 20 psi of oil pressure to all bearing surfaces. Each Peterson Remote Filter Primer has been developed to provide quick access to oil filtration, easy operation, and prolonged engine life. Primer offerings come in small and large filter options and in several left-to-right and right-to-left plumbing configurations to fit any application, and the billet aluminum construction ensures the lightest possible package. The small primer option includes filtration elements to fit typical small block Ford and Chevy offerings, including big block applications. A specific System 1 primer version is also available. The large primer option is designed to work with larger race-style filters for added filtration capacity. Oil inlet location is determined by viewing the body cover. In this case, the inlet is on the left side, indicating a left-to-right flow. Take note of the assembly tag that shows who assembled and tested the unit prior to shipment, ensuring the primer is ready to go right out of the box. In addition, note the warning to not use an impact-type drill for operation to avoid damage to the primer unit. Pressure in and pressure out locations on this large body primer are located on the top and are typically a -10 or -12 size. The primer inlet is always a -10. The large primer version also allows the inlet to be moved from either side by simply swapping the provided plug and fitting. On the small primer version, the pressure in and pressure out ports are on opposite sides, while the primer inlet can be located on either depending on model. Both primer bodies feature a maintenance fitting that incorporates a bypass valve within to prevent pressurized oil from entering the oil tank or oil sump. For maintenance procedures, we are using a large body primer, but the procedure is similar for the small primer as well. Regular maintenance is recommended and involves removing and cleaning the bypass valve to ensure proper operation. This should be done after each filter change as indicated on the valve housing. Using a typical -A9 or 7/8 wrench, remove the maintenance fitting and expose the internal spring and piston of the bypass valve assembly. Examine the O-ring on the piston for any damage, cuts, or tears and replace as required. In addition, examine the spring for any damage and clean the valve and internal bushing of any debris that may be present. To reinstall the piston and spring assembly, it is best to place the primer so the bypass valve opening is in a vertical position and drop in the oiled piston followed by the spring. Carefully install the fitting while taking note that the piston shaft rides inside the bushing within the maintenance fitting. A properly installed bypass assembly will allow the housing to thread completely seated to the body. Failing to engage the piston into the bushing will result in a lack of priming oil pressure. Once finger tight, use the wrench to snug the housing down. If the primer is not developing oil pressure and the bypass valve is operating properly, it may be because the rotors have become dry from lack of use or a potential leak. Start by removing the 4 cover bolts using a hex tool. Pull the cover away for the housing and expose the rotor assembly. Pull the rotors from the cover shaft and remove the O-ring that fits into the groove in the body. The idler shaft can be removed from the cover and placed into the housing bushing. The main shaft is used to spin the primary rotor and contains a small dowel pin to engage the rotor. If an impact drill is used, damage to the dowel pin and/or rotor can occur, causing the rotor not to spin and a loss of oil pressure as the result. Replace any damaged components as required and begin reassembly. Be sure to apply a nice coating of new oil for the rotors to operate properly. Install all 4 screws finger tight and torque to value found on the provided spec sheet. For a newly rebuilt primer, a field test can be performed quickly by placing a finger over the oil inlet port and using a standard drill. A slight vacuum pull should be felt at the port. This procedure will ensure the primer is functioning properly prior to installation. The Peterson Remote Filter Primer is now ready to ensure that your engine is well protected before each and every start. For additional information or questions, please contact the Peterson Tech Department hotline or by email.